The recent return of Hafthor Bjornsson to the strongest man on earth has caused a lot of debate in strongman circles about the scoring of the sport. Is the scoring system working, and should it be changed? So Auntie Liz, I know you love going and looking at the comments and seeing what fans are talking about when it comes to strongman. And obviously with the strongest man on earth, Hafthor won 5 events, and there was a lot of people saying, how can you win 5 events and not win the competition?
Yeah, and I mean, I can only assume they're not actual strongman fans. They're brand new eyes to the sport who just didn't really understand the scoring system. And we have seen different scoring systems used in strongman in the past. The 2004 World's Strongest Man was an anomaly.
That was an interesting one.
Very confusing. I still don't understand it. But up until 1980, they used a system where it was heavily weighted for the winner. Only 4 men out of 10 or 8 got any points at all for each event. So we've seen different scoring systems. The current system has been in continuous use since 1980. But of course, like any normal person, I came up with some new systems and I rescored all the major competitions using those systems to see if anything would change.
So our social life has been great fun recently.
It took me one night. Come on.
Right, talk us through what you've done. Obviously, you've got a few different scoring systems here, and you've looked back at different competitions to see if it would have made a difference.
Exactly. So I focused mostly on the World's Strongest Man because it has so much history. The first system I used was a suggestion I frequently saw in the last couple of weeks: give an extra point for an event win. Now, this actually, if you look over the, 44, 45 years of strongman history at the World's Strongest Man, it only would have changed things on 2 occasions. And that is when first and second place were super tight on points. 1990, O.D. Wilson would have won instead of Jean-Paul Sigmarsson. And in 2014, Hafthor Bjornsson would have won instead of Zydrunas. Now this system, because the overall winner of something like World's Strongest Man, they tend to win events too.
Yes.
So they obviously also get that gain. So it's a system that everyone benefits from, really.
Yeah, so obviously, you're going to get that 1 extra point for the event win. It gives you a slight advantage, but you still need that consistency.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's kind of, when you look at the history of World's Strongest Man, it's not changed a huge amount.
No.
What did you do next?
Well, so then I was looking at, now this one is where it gets a little bit more complicated, I guess. Current system is first place in a 10-man competition gets 10 points. In an event, last place gets 1, yeah? This time, I looked at the most event wins. So if we take the strongest man on earth, for example, Thor got 5. That's an outright win, yeah?
Okay.
If 2 men or 3 men got the same amount of first places in events, then you start looking at their second places. So it's kind of like the old countback system. Then you look at their third places to determine who was the most consistent overall. So first places out trump second places.
Sure. I'm not a fan of this system.
I think it's insane.
There's a number of reasons. I've seen a few people kind of saying, oh, the guy that wins the most events should win. However, take myself as an example. I could go to competition. First 3 events could be my absolute best events. So I go there and win 3 events. Don't even need to train the last 2 events. No. Because you're putting everything into those first 3 events.
Yeah.
So potentially, even if I was really bad at those last 2 events, it wouldn't matter because I don't need to do them. I could just not do the last 2 events and I've already won the competition.
Yeah.
So you're going to really mess up TV in that respect and people wanting to enjoy a close finish that could potentially still happen. But in a 5-event competition, you're done after 3 events.
Yeah, if you won the first 3, then you're done. Yeah, the competition is effectively over for you. Yeah.
And, you're not rewarding people on being good all-round athletes. That consistency has always been important with strongman.
Yeah.
And otherwise, we'll go and do like one, like in powerlifting, they have bench only. They have deadlift only because people want to specialise in a certain lift. And that's fine. If you just want to specialise in log lift, like Ian Bibby, amazing log lifter, we see him focus on that, doesn't do so well in
We'd see nothing but specialists.
You just see specialists all the time.
Train differently if this was
rather
the
than
system.
Having full competition. So I'm not a fan of it.
Let me tell you how it affected the results for all the World's Strongest Man. So Thor Bjornsson, instead of his 1 win in 2018, would have ended up being a 3-time winner. So he would have won the competition in 2014 over Zydrunas, and he would have won it in 2016 over Brian Shaw.
Thor is an incredible athlete.
Wins a lot of events.
He wins a lot of events.
But he always had weaknesses. So in 2014, it was the squat. There was always something that stopped him from winning So Brian Shaw, who was always very, very consistent, he would have been a 2-time winner of World's Strongest Man instead of 4, because as well as losing his 2016 title to Thor, he would have lost his 2011 title to Zydrunas.
Yeah, Brian is very much like a Magnus from Magnussen, just he was constantly top 3, top 4 in events. Similar to Mitch, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him so good in so many comps. But with this scoring system, you're saying he would have lost 2 of those titles.
Yeah, 2 less. Here's a fun one. Tom and Alexei would have switched wins. So
that's quite funny.
Yeah, Tom would have won in 2020 instead of Alexei, and Alexei would have won in 2022 instead of Tom. The Dominator, Mariusz Pudzianowski, would be a 4-time winner instead of 5, because Sebastian Venter would have won the 2007 competition. Yeah. So Sven Karlsson, who won in 2001, would have actually lost that year, but instead he would have won the 1999 and the year 2000 competitions. And Magnus Samuelsson, who would have taken Sven's title in 2001, would have also taken Jukka Ahla's in 1997, making him a 3-time champion.
That's interesting. Again, Magnus was very, very good at certain events, had a couple of weaknesses.
Yes, but he could have been a 3-time world
champion. On that scoring system.
Yeah, of course. So subsequently, Jukka Ahla would have never won the World's Strongest Man.
And he's a 2-time champion.
He's a 2-time winner. So Gerrit Badenhorst would have won the competition in 1995 and 1996.
Yeah, Gerrit, again, another athlete with amazing events, but a couple of... It was so frustrating being a Gerrit fan. I was a big fan of him. And it would come to like Farmer's Walk or something like that, and he would drop it like half a foot before the line.
Yeah.
And then Magnus would sweep in and take the win.
Oh, he did. And Riku Kiri would have won the title in 1994, which means Magnus Magnussen, instead of having 4 titles, would just have the one from 1991.
Yeah, Magnus, we said it, same with Brian, that consistency is what made him so good.
Again, O.D. Wilson would have beaten Jean-Paul Sigmarsson in 1990, and Jean-Paul would have beaten Jeff Capes in 1983. So Jeff would have been just a 1-time winner, while Jean-Paul would have had the same amount of wins overall.
Yeah, and O.D. would have been the world's strongest man. He would have been the
world's strongest man. So, like, I quite like some of the outcomes from this, but I do agree. I just think it doesn't reward consistency.
No.
Like, you know, there are instances where someone would have won the world's strongest man, but got 1 rep on a deadlift, and 1 point on that deadlift. Do you know what I mean?
No, it's fun looking at how it changes things, but I wouldn't have been a fan of this sort of scoring system.
No. So then, I'd seen a lot of comments about decathlon or heptathlon.
Yeah, decathlon and heptathlon have a very complicated scoring system.
I just didn't know how to apply it to strongman when the events are different.
It would almost be impossible, because you'd need to really standardise everything in strongman to then base what points should be scored from performance levels. And obviously, we also saw lots of people talking about like an F1 style, which I think you're going to go into now, which I'm a bit more of a fan of.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know the Formula 1 style, you get 25 points for first place, 18 points for second place, 15 for third, 12 for fourth, 10 for fifth, down to 1 place for... down to 1 point for last place. So again, it's more heavily rewarding
the higher places.
Yes.
And for competitions like the Strongest Man on Earth, where you have more than 10... it doesn't give you any points if you're outside that top 10.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I started doing this for starting for the most recent worlds backwards, and honestly, it just took so long because I was rescoring everyone. But interestingly, though, I did 10 years worth.
Yeah.
And in 2020, Tom would have won using a Formula 1 star system. And again, in 2016, Thor would have won instead of Brian. So it seems to very similarly follow the results as if they had the most event wins. It's a very similar outcome.
Yeah, it's favouring those event wins, but not punishing weaknesses quite as harshly.
No.
In that system, Tom would now be a 4-time winner of World's Strongest Man.
Yes, he would, yeah.
Wow.
So then I did all 3 of those systems for 10 years worth of Arnold's competitions, because at this point it's getting really late. So looking at this year, Mitch would win with every single system. Last year, Mateusz would have won if we went on the most event wins instead of Mitch. Mitch would have won if there was an extra point win, because the point split was too great anyway.
Still, yep.
And using the Formula 1 star, Mateusz would have won.
It's interesting with Mateusz. That weakness costs him big time.
Yes. 2022, Martins wins using every single system. 2020, Thor was the overall winner. If we go on the most event wins, it's Mateusz. If we give an extra point per event win, then Thor and Mateusz end up tied on points. And the Arnold's rules are that they have a tiebreaker event, so we don't know how that would have gone. And then if you use Formula One style, again, Mateusz wins.
I think Mateusz is probably one of the athletes that's suffered the most with the current scoring system.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So Thor and Mitch both would have lost one of their Arnold's titles to Mateusz. Mateusz would be a two-time
champion of the Arnold's.
I know, which that feels just, I think. So the grand finale, though, is the strongest man on earth.
This is the competition everyone's been talking about.
This is what sort of sparked the debate in the first place. The overall winner was Mitchell Hooper. If we go by most event wins, it's Thor Bjornsson. If we give an extra point per event win, Mitch still wins. If we use the Formula One style scoring system, Mitch still wins. Mitch would have had 143 points and Thor would have had 140. So it would have been much closer, but Mitch would have still taken the edge because he didn't have the same drastic weaknesses that Thor did, sort of relatively speaking.
Do any of these systems stand out to you as something you'd like to see implemented at all?
No?
You like the current system?
I like the current system personally.
I've always said I like the current system. However, I don't mind the Formula One system.
I don't mind
it does benefit you to win events, but it doesn't punish you as much. Like if you don't do so well on an event.
I think going by most event wins would screw up the sport more than any other points.
The most event wins is stupid.
I think
that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't like that.
No, but I could see something like the Formula One's kind of scoring.
It would
work well.
Yeah.
I like the current system. I like count back over like a final, like the final event rule, or a decider event, which they do at the Arnold's. Yeah, so it's a fun debate. I know everyone has their own opinion as well. So you guys, let us know what you would prefer. Do you like the current system? Do you like one of these? Is there another scoring system that you'd like to see implemented? I think it's important to keep it fairly simple. Strongman needs to be fairly simple. If we start doing like a decathlon type scoring system, people watching are just going to be clueless as to what's going on.
The casual fans watching, let's bear in mind, we were told that they got rid of countback because it was too complicated. It's like, really? I mean, I think people are smarter than that, but I do think an overly complicated system would done.
Absolutely. It's fun. It is always fun to look at these types of scenarios and see what the potential could be. The fact is the scoring system is what it is, so the athletes understand that and they train based off that scoring system. So being good all round is super important in strongman, being versatile is super important, and just not having weaknesses. You can be the best at 3 or 4 events. That doesn't matter if you have glaring weaknesses. It is important to bring up those weaknesses. So if you're one of those athletes and you're on the way up and you've got an amazing deadlift, an amazing log lift, but you're weak at moving events and the fitness events, prioritize those, because if you want to be a good all-round strength athlete and win these competitions, you need to be good at everything.